welcome back to the Don't Mom Alone podcast. I'm your host, Heather McFadden, and this is the place where I get to walk alongside you and connect you with people and resources so you know that you don't mom alone. And in this episode, number 399, I'm welcoming to the show my husband, Bruce McFadden. All right, here we are. Hey, today's a big day. February 22nd is when we're recording this. And it is our youngest son's 11th birthday. I was thinking about how that was the time I had my panic attacks, and it feels really good to be 11 years past that. And it's our oldest son's 17 and a half birthday, which means we're only 6 months away from him being 18, which feels big. And then this episode is going live on our anniversary. Happy anniversary.
That's a lot of numbers.
It's a lot of numbers. We're a number family.
Yeah.
We have our family, values of communication and creativity and fun, but also numbers.
Yeah. We do.
I do think we talk about numbers a lot.
We divide everything from itself.
We find connections in numbers.
Yeah.
But I asked for questions, and what's interesting is they really did circle around two topics. One was marriage, so it being our anniversary, that's timely. And another was raising teenagers, and we have 3 of them. So we are really humbled in that area.
Yeah, and also we recognize that we're mid-journey.
We're not even mid. I feel like we're just getting started. This is hard, y'all.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Every stage has its own heart and learning. So let's start with marriage. What do you think?
Let's do it.
One question we got from Brooke Johnson is, could you discuss a low point in your marriage and how you worked through it? And another gal, Love Ardently, she said, what was the hardest challenge throughout your married life together? And so I think people want to know about hard stuff. And you and I were talking, we feel like we've shared this a lot, but when we looked back at the previous 6 times you've been on the show, we've really only talked about it once. So in your mind, what was our hardest or lowest point?
That's a loaded question.
No, we already talked about this, remember? The season when we had young kids.
Yeah.
Bruce is a positivity guy.
Yeah. So I tend to...
He's like, what do you mean? It's all been amazing. I think we went into our pre-marriage counseling, and we were supposed to rate our relationship, and you were all like roses and starlight and rainbows, and I was like, it's the worst. Here's all the problems.
Yeah, and I think that is kind of how we approach most. So
you're like, there was a low point in our marriage? What?
Yeah. No, but you're right. It definitely was when our kids were really young. I think one of your guests shared ages.
One of
your listeners shared ages that we were there before. Was it 7, 4, 2, and 6 months?
Sarah Pete Gordon, she has 7, 4, 2, and 6 months. You got it.
We were there, and that's hard. And
yeah, I think when we had our second, that was hard. That way we really had to come to Jesus. I think we had divided and conquered, and once they went to sleep, we went to our computers. We didn't have smartphones back then because we're old, but we really forgot to connect.
Yeah. And
then when we had 4, it was just exhausting. We were both physically, emotionally exhausted, and it's usually, I think for you it was your career. You were really busy with work, and you were emotionally checked out.
I would say, realistically, I think our connection the first, 10, maybe even 15 years of our marriage was more around the occasional moments of fun. And I feel like we really didn't talk about real stuff for a lot of that period, really. When I'm really honest with myself, I think we kind of kept it surface level. I think it's really been kind of the last 8 to 10 years where I feel like we've learned, language on communication and creating time. I remember when the kids were young, we would do couch time. We tried to do couch time, and we'd do it periodically. I wouldn't say we were super consistent Because usually that was at like, the last kid's gone to bed and there's nobody crying and it's quiet. And maybe that's 8:30 and we're tired.
And it wasn't like we would watch a show right away. I think it was this intentionality to say, okay, let's meet on the couch. Let's talk for just a little bit. And sometimes it would linger. And sometimes we're like, we're both tired. Let's turn something on or let's go to bed.
Yeah.
But it was this, I'm choosing you and I want to see you. And for females, that is, I was just reading Bruce's section out of my friend Nancy Houston. She wrote this little booklet, Then God Made a Woman, Unwrapping Female Sexuality. A huge part of connecting as a married couple is your sexual intimacy. And for women who are in that season of young kids, their brains are full of worries, fears, stress. I mean, men are full of other, their stresses. But for women, when the brain is turned on, the sexual organs are turned off. It is science. And it takes a minute to activate the areas of the body that are like, yeah, I'm ready to be intimate with you. And so having that couch time or, it transitioned into taking walks for us once a week. That's huge, for really feeling seen and heard and releasing some of that stress. I think when I could communicate to you, oh, I'm really worried because Quaid got sent home for biting, which feels ridiculous now that he's 17. But those were really heavy worries for me when we had little kids. Or the boys keep fighting. Or I don't know how to get so-and-so to take a nap. Like, they may seem silly now, but they're really weighty at the time.
No, I remember how hard that was. And they're just not really being an easy answer to it, unfortunately. But I know one of the questions somebody asked, like, does it get easier? I think was roughly what that question was. And, just reiterating that, we're still in the journey too. Like we, there's a level of, humility, I think that we should all keep with that because the story is still being written. But I think, I just think that these challenges they just evolve. And I think, things that we work through now are just totally different than things we worked through 5 years ago. And so I would say, and I'll kind of reiterate a little bit of what I think maybe in a prior episode, we talked about feelings, which is a huge part of my journey, just kind of understanding what am I feeling? I don't know, honestly, be honest, really what I'm feeling. But I had to learn that. I had to learn that language. We were actually in our small group last Sunday morning and we were kind of going around sharing our feelings. But Heather and I, usually Saturday mornings, we have our walk and that's kind of when I figure out my feelings. And I realized
Wait, you said that really fast.
Okay.
You said Saturday mornings when we normally have our walk. And and this was new to me when you said it on Sunday.
Okay.
You said.
So let me just kind of maybe just so our general, for me, I see our communication patterns really as Saturday mornings, kind of the casual, we're walking. For me, that's really helpful, shoulder to shoulder time. It's not kind of pressure. Nobody's looking, Heather's not looking at me and I don't, there's not like a time constraint.
There's not like a waiter coming and checking on us every few minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of a free kind of period of just kind of exploration. And usually I'm kind of figuring out what I'm thinking. So we were about to take our walk on Saturday morning. All of a sudden, Heather realized that we had one of our kids had a basketball game in 25 minutes. So all of a sudden,
we were watching The Greatest Showman. It was a good morning.
It was a good morning.
It was also freezing, and you were kind of getting sick. There were a lot of reasons why it just wasn't a good match.
But we didn't get the walk. And then usually Saturday nights we
have a date.
Usually have a date. A lot of times one-on-one, sometimes with other people. But so then Sunday mornings when I'm going into small group and we're talking through feelings, I'm usually well prepared. Like I had a lot of time to process through it all. Well, we didn't. I think we had a date on Saturday night, but that's more fun and a little bit less on the real deep processing. And so I realized was everybody's kind of talking through their feelings. I was like, I really don't know what I'm feeling. So
you recognized not only is it valuable connection for us, it helps you kind of identify what's going on in you and process that.
I'm an external processor. And so I kind of need that safe space to be able to share my feelings without, oftentimes, I think one thing we've developed on is I don't want a lot of questions. Like I definitely don't want to be peppered with questions that actually makes me, bottle up a bit. Like I just need freedom. Like I think, the Townsend framework we use in our small group, I want just containment. I just want a free space I need a free space just to share my thoughts without critique, without a bunch of Q&A. Like this, that creates a safe environment for me. And then through that, I start talking, and generally through it, I begin to piece out what I'm thinking. So very often Heather on like a Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday will be like, what's going on with you? What's wrong? And I'm like, oh, nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong. And usually on Saturday morning, I'm like, oh, now that I think, like I really in the moment didn't know.
You're just doing, you're moving, you're not really processing the stress, the fear in the moment, which
Correct.
So I just think ultimately when we have gone through a hard season of marriage, it has been individually, we're going through a challenge, whether, loss of my dad, my mom living with us, that was hard, or work stress or kid stress. What has helped us work through that, to answer the question, was really leaning in individually to our own ability to communicate and be aware of what's going on in us and make intentional time to share that with each other. Because when you're not sharing it with each other, you intuit, you see the person, you see them reacting, you think it's maybe about you. You create a narrative. The story I'm telling myself, which I think we shared in the last episode, story I'm telling myself is blank. And you've created this narrative. If you don't even communicate that you've created this false narrative, you continue to operate and you guys are totally missing each other. You're reacting from your anxiety and stress. They're reacting from their anxiety and stress. And you just stay in those circles of mismatch. One of our parenting challenges is a child who has some sensory specifications.
Yes, very specific.
Very specific. And that includes his bed.
Yeah.
What is frustrating for you with his bed?
He seems to reject his bedding materials really often. I mean, we're having to make all sorts of unique adjustments that don't make any logical sense.
Yeah, but to him they do. And one thing that has really helped is I ordered a set of Boll and Branch twin sheets for him, and he gives them the double thumbs up. Like he really likes them.
Yeah, he does.
He is telling me that they feel like fancy sheets. Like he said,
they feel fancy.
They feel fancy. Yeah. And I think I told them they only get softer each time you wash them because they use the highest quality threads on earth. They're made with slow grown organic cotton. I'd never even heard of slow grown organic cotton, but it causes them to be really, really soft and like buttery to the touch and breathable. So they're good in Texas where we have cooler and warmer months. Within like 24 hours, we can have cooler and warmer weather. And they're loved by millions of sleepers. Did you know they're so luxurious? They're loved by 3 U.S. presidents.
Do you know which 3 U.S. presidents?
I don't, but there might be down to 2. I don't know. Over 10,000 raving reviews, and they come in 10 versatile colors in all the sizes, even up to California King. They're made without toxins, free from pesticides, formaldehyde, other harsh chemicals. They fit the deepest mattress, and they're even labeled top and bottom tags, so you can make your bed really easily. Make the most of bedtime with Boll and Branch sheets. Get 15% off your first order when you use promo code DMA at bollandbranch.com. Exclusions apply. See site for details. That's Boll and Branch, BOLLAND, branch.com. Promo code DMA.
Yeah, and I think the key there is I reckon as people listening to this, they're bringing their own
different
challenges.
Yeah,
they're bringing their own personalities, their own dynamics, their own personal stories, and so they're in their own situations insofar as ability to create time together and things like that. So
this isn't like a one size fits all solution.
It is not. But I do think that there are some foundational pieces that are going to be consistent to like that healthy communication, and one of them, frankly, is understanding what safety looks like for that other individual and creating that. And so for me, that safety is what I call containment, or what Townsend calls containment.
He has, and we've talked about this before, relational needs. What do you need from people? And whether it's encouragement, some people need more encouragement. Some people need celebrating. Some people need advice. They really can't move forward unless they get your feedback on what they're doing. And so recognizing for yourself, what do I need in this situation, and asking for that from
and that might be a place to start in that. And by the way, and it's not somebody who's going to probably come up with their answer on that the first time. Like this is an iterative process, right? But for me, what I realized is the one that's most helpful for me and that creates a safe environment generally is containment, which is just basically, I just need a safe space that I can just talk, where I'm not judged, where I'm not criticized, where there's questions are at the minimum. Like I don't want to be peppered with questions, and I don't want to be like, oh, I'm so glad you're finally, you don't want shame and guilt. And
you don't want like even any kind of commentary on your process.
I don't want any commentary on my process. I just need a safe space.
What we were going to talk about too was this posture, which I think no matter what your marriage story, no matter what challenges are specific to your marriage, there is a posture we've noticed that is really essential to moving forward and working through a hard place. And that is a growth posture.
Yes.
Are you willing to learn about yourself, about your spouse, learn from others? Because yes, containment, but I think at the same time, you are willing to listen and learn from other people. It's not like you're like, I just want to live my life, and you just want a space to be able to process. Well,
containment was where I kind of needed to be for a few years, frankly, as I kind of try to figure that out. But now...
But you were still in a containment space. You were still learning and growing.
Yes.
It doesn't mean stagnant.
But now sometimes the conversations I go to other ones, there's, Heather will, I'm sure, share this sheet again. I think you shared it in a prior episode. But like, now I feel like I've expanded out where I don't necessarily just need containment.
Yeah.
But I did for a few years predominantly just need that containment. But to get the growth posture piece, I think that was a helpful lens too. I think there are people who just naturally just want to grow. And I think there's other people who naturally want to protect and are a little bit less open to that. And I do think that allowing and recognizing an opportunity for growth and seeing this is somebody has to kind of decide they really want growth, I think, really, for this to be effective. But I also don't think it's something that can be forced upon somebody either. I think
you have to make that internal decision.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we don't want to grow because what we know feels safe and comfortable, even if it's maybe not our best version and we're hurting people around us. It's what we know. And I think with parenting, we got some questions about parenting teens and what's the difference in moving into the teen years. And I think that as you're parenting, you really need to be in a growth posture because your kids are growing. And like when I had Dr. Ken Wilgus on talking about feeding the mouth that bites you, you have to transition your parenting style as your kids are growing, or you will suffocate the relationship and isolate yourself from having any voice or say in their life. And so I think growth posture for us is yes, individually, yes, as a married couple, and yes, as we engage with our kids.
Yeah. And yes, insofar as recognizing that, what worked with one kid might not work with the next kid, or what worked with one kid in one stage might not work. So that's kind of, once again, that growth posture, reading the room, and reading your growth and your spouse's growth, and as well as the growth of your kids. Kind of one of the things that when I saw some of the questions about raising teenagers, one thing that I kept hearing about as our kids were getting kind of towards teenage years was this whole idea of kind of like that rite of passage, and I never did that growing up. So I didn't necessarily have like that moment where it was like, you're a man now type of thing. Now,
yeah. And like traditionally in a Jewish culture, the bat mitzvah, bar mitzvah, there's an actual ceremony. There's a celebration of saying you are now an adult.
Right. And so I didn't have a lot of context on that. And so with our oldest, we did that, I think it was around 8th grade. And we used a curriculum from Champion Tribes.
That I didn't interview.
Yeah. And I wouldn't say we didn't use the full package. I think we kind of made it our own. Like I really wanted the content, the topics. And so that's really the main part we used, which is really helpful.
And you did this in context of community. It was with you and
yes.
3 other dads or 2 other dads?
That was 2 other dads.
2 other dads and their sons.
And their sons that were friends of our oldest. And we just went away for a weekend and just kind of, mostly just kind of doing some outdoor stuff, having fun. And then we would have these 12 topics and we would have the 3 dads would split the topics up. We each had, 4 topics, and they weren't long conversations. And they really meant to be kind of just sharing a story, kind of some dialogue. And, probably the average, topic was 25, 30 minutes.
And doing this does not mean that then your kid will never make bad choices.
No, for sure not. Because to be honest, hopefully we really weren't teaching them very much in those 12. Hopefully these were, areas like responsibility and things like that. These were things hopefully that were well covered before. But I think the most important part was at the very end. It was the very end. And it wasn't, some people do more, dramatic ceremonies. We didn't do that. It was just, we had like a token. For our second son, we used a James Avery necklace that had, a silver cross on it. Something that, is kind of a token of this. And, we kind of wrote this letter to them and we read it to them. Actually, I think we did that one-on-one, not necessarily as the group, because it was really more about our relationship. It really was not about show. It was about kind of just my relationship. And I sat down.
Your relationship.
My relationship with my son, with our son. And I sat across from him and I said, look, to this point, you have been a kid and we have really been a big driver on, your decisions and your consequences. But, with this token, I'm literally handing the keys to you. You're a man now and you're going to make your own decisions. You're going to make good decisions. You're going to make bad decisions. But our role, your mom and my role is now shifting from kind of your leader to your coach. And I don't know, it's not like something like the clouds parted and things like that. But I mean, I structurally changed my mindset at that point. And so we had a lot of strict rules around, game time and kind of how we manage, their activities. Prior. And at that point, this was a little bit of a science project the first time. And even the second time, where we give them a lot of freedom and much better for them to have.
And a lot of responsibility.
For them to have 4 years to go through that in the home.
Yeah, because that started at 14.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that in the home, under our roof. And we're watching them navigate, our oldest first job. And even, I think it was, I can't remember who I had on the show who was like, you should not be waking up your kids anymore. And I thought, oh my goodness, we are still waking up our teens. So even just like you are responsible for waking yourself up and going to work in school.
But not anymore. We don't.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. They are responsible for waking themselves up. We are not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
That was like it sounds silly now, but it's even, when they're little, I remember I was still helping our oldest get dressed. He could have dressed himself, but you're just in the season of like little kids and you're doing everything. You forget what they can do for themselves. And I think it's that mindset of, oh, they're capable of doing this for themselves within the context. And that book, Feeding the Mouth That Bites You, talks through this. Like, here are the consequences of the boundary lines. If we give you this freedom and you go past what is safe and legal, we pull in and we get involved because you are still under our roof. But we want to be able to give you this allotment of freedom. And so show us that you can manage that well. And so we do. Like, you keep the grades up, then you can choose how much game time you have on your own because you're managing when you get your schoolwork done on your own time. And we've seen them do that because
do really well. Yeah.
What happens if you don't? Like, you go to college and for the first time ever, you're given that freedom. And what happens? Kids don't ever stop playing games and then they don't go to class. And then it's like you flunk out of school because you never learned how to manage these abilities to do things on your own. Anyway, I just think we're still learning, and there have been flubs along the way
Sure.
and big mistakes, and we're still learning mistakes. And yet, even the mistakes, you wanted to talk about this, like, because you've established that relationship of you're the man, even in the mistakes, how we handle communication.
So, I mean, we've had, obviously many opportunities to recognize that our kids are making decisions that we view as less than ideal, right? It just even a recent situation where we, instead of making it about right and wrong and you need to fix this and change this, or we're going to take away this, we just ask questions. And I was really surprised, I continue actually to be surprised. I can't count on this every time. And this is definitely not a, you do this and it leads up to this.
This is not a formula.
It's not a formula. In this situation, which was an important situation, I was really impressed with the amount of transparency.
Honesty on their part.
On their part. I felt like a coach. And I was like, okay, I want to stay in this coach role. I'm not taking the keys back. That would be the worst thing I could do here. And in fact, the first conversation was myself with this individual one-on-one. And I was so thrown off by the amount of transparency that he asked, well, do you have any questions? And I said, thank you first for being so honest. I wasn't prepared for that. I need some time to process this, and let me come back to you on this. And we did a later of a conversation, and Heather was there, and we kind of talked it through. But don't also feel like in the moment you necessarily have to come back with some wisdom that's going to definitively answer or prescribe what they should and shouldn't do. Like, I think if we're getting to the point where it's more of just conversations, and once again we're more of a coach, and we're able to provide some thoughts, and sometimes that thought might be, hey, we need a little bit more time to come back with some further ideas, coaching or questions. I feel like directionally that's the right way to go.
It's good. Bruce, I know you have a job that takes up a lot of time and energy, but what's the most important part of your job?
Getting the right people in the right seats.
Yeah, that sounds challenging.
It is.
Have you ever used Indeed to help you? Because they are the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place.
Yes, of course. Indeed is huge.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Really helpful.
Yeah.
I have seen that it saves a lot of time because you're finding candidates that have the right skills, and that they have all these really cool, powerful hiring tools like their Indeed Instant Match, their assessments, and their virtual interviews. Have you used any of their tools?
I have not used Indeed's tools, but I should check it out.
You're gonna do that after we talk here?
I will check it out.
And if you hate waiting, their data shows that 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches the job description the moment they sponsor a job. Have you ever tried sponsoring a job?
I'm pretty sure we have. Our recruiters probably
do that.
Deal with that much
the
more
detail of that. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I'm really thankful that when you do sponsor, you get the short list of quality candidates because the resume matches your job description. So it's like this, let the computers do the work for you, right? Indeed knows when you are growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. So visit Indeed.com/DMA to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/DMA, Indeed.com/DMA. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Okay, a couple quick questions. Does Bruce listen to every podcast?
Oh, now I'm starting to feel guilt and shame.
This is from our friend Tracy. I was hoping
you weren't going to ask me that one. Thanks, Tracy.
Tracy wants to know, do you even listen to podcasts, first of all? No, you don't listen to podcasts. You listen to audiobooks because once you finished all the president's biographies, then you got into other biographies, and you've now covered all the dictators. And
I do like to read. I will say that.
So no is the answer. No is the quick answer.
Thanks,
what did you want to say about it?
About what part?
About not listening.
Well, I do feel guilt and shame about that. I do listen to some. Heather does
Some. So I've done 400.
Let's just stick with some. But Heather will say, hey, I really want you to listen to this one. And okay. I always do.
When I emphasize it? Okay. That's good. What have you seen me do in parenting boys that has been worthy of noting? That's what Audrey wants to know. Audrey Brewer. She's a loyal listener.
I would say, first off, that the reaction of, our 4 young men, actually, I'd say 2 young men, 2 boys, it's unpredictable. And I would say for you in particular, a lot of it is just unfamiliar. Why they do certain things and how they do certain things is just definitely not at all how you would do certain things.
Yep.
And I'd say one thing that I have seen, an area where I feel like I've seen you grow, is a little bit more openness and not trying to understand them through your lens, but maybe more grace and less judgment about the way that they go about it, because they're just going to operate very differently, and they're not going to process things the way that you are processing things. And I think that's been I think that's helpful and constructive when I see that.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show, Bruce.
Thank you for having me.
I didn't welcome you at the beginning. I'm sorry. You're always welcome here in my office.
I can just show up.
It's the 7th time. It's a completion. Does that mean that's it? You're never coming on again? No. Who knows? How many are we going to do? How many episodes will we do of this podcast? Who knows? But we have a new book coming out, Right Where You Belong. What are your thoughts on? Someone asked about, I didn't even know I was going to write books, and now I've done 2.
I feel like it all kind of happened at the right timing and in the right way. I think when you were first thinking about that years ago, I think it more seemed like that was kind of the right step and the right timing and things like that. But I feel like when these books came out, I feel like, you really kind of had the right story, and it all made sense. It didn't feel like a career checkbox. It felt like this is just a natural progression of the story.
It's good. Thank you for supporting me. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but I appreciate you. All right. Adios.
Bye.
Bye. I was realizing after we recorded this how the topics of marriage and teens really do intersect in a powerful way. I was recognizing as even more fun teenage issues came up after we recorded this, how thankful I am that we, in our come to Jesus moment when our second was born, decided to put in place some connection points, and we continued to adapt and change and make those meet our needs based on the ages of our kids, and reached out to people for help, whether it was parents or whether it was friends who could be with our kids so that we could get away and stay connected, because it does put a strain on your marriage. When things are hard with your teens, you are looking for a reason why it happened. And it's really easy, for my heart in particular, to point and blame the other parent or feel shame in my own parenting. And so to have a safe space established prior to hitting those teen stress points, I think I'm just realizing for us, I'm really thankful that we did that. So if you have kids, preschool, elementary years, it is worth the time and the effort and the energy to prioritize that connection. And I don't know what it's going to look like for you. I know every family is super unique, and whether you have family nearby to help or not, I'm just speaking from ahead. I always say I'm the Titanic telling you to avoid the iceberg ahead. Make it a priority and make time to stay connected to your spouse. Anyway, and for the teen challenges, I am really thankful for moms who are farther ahead of me that I've been able to reach out to, who have given such great advice. I said that in the last episode. Even moms who are in age-wise younger than me, but are so wise, just people to give perspective and help when you can't believe it for yourself. I'm such a fan of not momming alone. Like, this is my whole brand, but I'm seeing it for myself, and people are saying back to me things that I've said to them. And the reality of God moving outside of our parenting is so important to hold on to. We are going to make good decisions. We're going to make bad decisions. And on all of that, our kids are their own people, and God loves them more than we ever could. And so I just want to encourage you in that, whatever season you are in. And this is going long, so I'm going to pray for us. Lord, I thank you. I thank you that you've put us in relationship for a reason, and that you desire for us to know and experience your love. And I pray, Lord, that whatever is getting in the way of us talking to someone about what's hard right now, whether it's something hard in our marriages, whether it's something hard with our kids, that you would help us trust and believe that you will bring to mind the people. You will cross our paths with whomever we need to be supported by, to feel your tangible love. I know, of course, we go to you first, God, and we seek your wisdom and your comfort and your Holy Spirit's help. And Lord, I just also believe that you have given us people, your tangible hands and feet, for hugs, for care, for words of hope. And I thank you that you know how humans are made, and you know what we would need. I pray for each person listening that they would trust you in that process and come to you for what they uniquely need. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, a little rambly here at the end. I'm so sorry. Next week, super exciting. I'm going to have Candace Cameron Bure on the show, and some of you know why I am. It's super exciting news. I can't wait to share with you. And also, I wanted to reinforce the phone number that you can call and leave a message for me. Some of you have already done it, and that's so fantastic. The phone number is 972-246-8699. It will ring, and then you will hear a little message from me, and you just record. If you want to identify yourself, you can, but it also might tell me who you are already. And if you leave a question, we might use it in an upcoming episode, but just know that I will see it. It goes into my email, and I'll see your message. So thankful to have a way to connect with y'all. And I'll meet you back here next week. All right. Adios.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Don't Mom Alone podcast. If you're wanting to connect with more people and more resources to help remind you that you're not alone, head over to don'tmomalone.com. That's where you'll also find show notes with any links mentioned by our guests. Most importantly, I want you to know the good news, the great news that you're not alone, because God has promised to always be with you. With faith in Jesus Christ, the one who died for you and rose again, Jesus said when he left, he was going to leave a helper, a comforter, to be with us. God in us. Moms, that's superpower. So while you're washing dishes at your kitchen sink, while you're driving to and from work, while you're feeding that baby late into the night, while you're cleaning sticky floors, God promises to be just as present with you as when you're worshiping in a church pew. As it says in Zephaniah 3:17, the Lord your God is with you. He is mighty to save. He takes great delight in you. He will quiet you with his love, and he will rejoice over you with singing. Now that's good news. Have a great day.